Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Simon Bestwick.
And I'm Gemma Files, and this, of course, is No Darkness
Yes,
But
but
Ours.
Ally Wilkes' first novel, All the White Spaces, A Tale of Terror set in the Antarctic, was one of the subjects discussed in our very first podcast. Her second novel, Where the Dead Wait, stays with the theme of polar terror, this time in the icy wastes of the Arctic, and we are absolutely delighted to have her on the podcast to talk about it and about her work. So here, without further ado, is the final part of our conversation with Ally here on No Darkness But Ours.
I mean, I was lucky that I did have, for All the White Spaces, one of my friends who is also a polar and Antarctic nerd who does sail tall ships. So I was able to run certain things past her. I also took this must be one of the most stupid research trips anyone has ever attempted. I joined a LARP, a live action role playing game, which ran over 5 days and recreated the voyage of the Demeter from on its way to Whitby. Yes. And we sailed this vintage sailing ship around the Baltic Sea for 5 days in October, whilst all in period costume, pretending to be various characters. So I did that to get great. My sort of vintage sailing on, and what I can conclusively report is I fucking hate it.
It's kind of
I don't like ships. I don't like being seasick. I don't like being cold. I don't like sleeping in a room with a million other people. I don't like bunks. Yeah. All this I don't like. I mean, the game itself was hilarious fun. I had a great time, and the clothing was fantastic. Yeah. But it really sort of helped me get into the skin of someone who really didn't like sailing, which was less useful for Jonathan, obviously, because he bloody loves it.
Yeah. Loves everything about it.
And he's been able to research it. About a decade ago now, I was obsessed with airships and trying to kind of alternate history thing where the R101 was saved from crashing, because that's just had a load of stuff wrong with it, but what an amazing ship. And just something that I think by its final iteration was something like 777 feet long. That's about 50 feet shorter than the fucking Titanic.
Oh, what could go wrong?
And about 9 stories high. I mean, just
what indeed.
You could actually walk along the top of it while it was in flight, and I cannot even imagine what that must have been like. But I mean, the descriptions of the interior, I mean, it's just astonishing. But of course, and you'd so love to be able to take a flight in something like that, because by all accounts, it's very, very different from flying in a heavier than aircraft, because you just let go of the ropes and up it goes. But you can't. I mean, there are some semi-rigid airships which fly around the Bodensee, I think, in Germany, which is probably the closest you're going to get to that experience. But of course, there isn't even an exit. There isn't even like one in a museum or anything, because they were just so fucking big.
One of the interesting things that I found in I'm a movie nerd, obviously, and I go to BMVs for fun and try to look for things that I've never seen before. And I found a movie called The Hindenburg, which I'd never heard of before. And
George C. Scott.
Yes, that's right. George C. Scott plays the captain of the Hindenburg. And it's incredible for a bunch of different reasons, but particularly because it really gets across what it's like to be inside of a ship like the Hindenburg.
I'm going to check this out.
Yeah, from a technical side of point of view, and at one point, one of the seams rips open, and they have to mend it from inside.
You'd have one of the most difficult jobs was being a rigger, which was climbing around the metal framework, patching any holes in because the gas bags were made from gold beater skin. They're basically the innards of a cow. Yeah. Because they didn't have plastics, so they stank pretty unpleasantly as well. But they'd often sing as they went, because hydrogen, like helium, has that effect on your vocal cords. That's it was singing, "Abide with me, fast the eventide. I think there might be a leak here. Can you pass the glue, please? Oh, I'm getting a bit lightheaded." I just thought it was a interesting little bit of trivia. One of the Hindenburg survivors, a guy called Spar, I think he was a He was like a comedian. He was
Yes.
quite
Yeah.
anti-Nazi.
He's a character in the film.
He actually became an actor, and changed it. And he changed his name, and this is absolutely true, to Ben Dova, Dova. And if you watch the film Marathon Man, he is in the opening sequence. He plays Laurence Olivier's father, who gets killed in that car crash at the beginning that kicks off the whole thing.
That's hilarious.
One of the guys, he survived being burnt to death in the Hindenburg. One of his last screen roles is being burnt to death in a car crash.
The head rigger in the Hindenburg is William Atherton.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
My poor missus. One of the first weekends we spent together was when I was at the peak of my airship obsession, and she spent a great deal of that weekend listening to me bang on about the R101 and about how airships worked, and the fact that she actually wanted to keep seeing me after that, and didn't smother me in my sleep, and actually married me a few years later is kind of like a testament to what an extraordinary person
you can find somebody somebody who will be okay with you constantly talking about your hyperfixations, your various hyperfixations.
There's always someone who's got the same interests as you. I remember I took a novel writing course when I was writing All the White Spaces, and we workshopped lots of stuff, and it was a very, very useful course. It was fantastic. But I remember someone coming up to me after one of our workshops being like, do you think anyone else is going to want to read about polar exploration? And I was like, I think they might. I'm hoping. I'm hoping, because that's what I'm writing.
Yeah, it's like that's all you can ever do. All you can ever do is hope.
But I wish that back then I'd been on Twitter, so I could have just told them to look at the Terror Twitter hashtag and the Terror fandom and be like, yes, there will be people who will be extraordinarily knowledgeable about this.
Have you ever seen The Thing? Have you ever seen The Other Thing? Yes, exactly.
There's a wonderful. We talked about a hell of a lot of frozen horror.
We did
first, but there's a wonderful Graham Masterson story actually called The Sixth Man, which, if you've not read, is terrific. Antarctic horror. I'm not quite sure if the family of Captain Oates would be particularly pleased, but there was just something terrific about those kind of extreme conditions and how they just strip everything away and just leave you.
The crevasse in Amundsen's tent, the captain of the Pole Star, etc.
Oh, I love the captain of the Pole Star. That's just such a huge classic. Also, another book I came across when I was researching was Thomas Keneally, the guy who wrote Schindler's List, actually wrote a wonderful, very slim fiction mystery whodunit set on an expedition rather like Scott's expedition.
Oh wow!
It's fantastic. It's a locked room mystery set in the huts of Antarctica. It's very short. It's called Victim of the Aurora, and it's incredible all the way through. It's just fantastic. It's very clever.
Have you read the comic book Whiteout? They made a film adaptation. I think was it Kate Beckinsale?
Yes, it was Kate Beckinsale.
But the comic books are terrific. Carrie Stetko, the main character, is just absolutely brilliant character. U.S. Marshal on duty in Antarctica, which is every bit as fun as you'd expect it to be. Not horror, but that's. I mean, I don't know if you consider.
I mean, it's. I personally think that extremes. We, as I said before, we like to think that we're extremophiles. We're not. We're not built for that shit at all.
No,
and the extremes are always horrific on some level. It's like, why would you do that to yourself?
I'm quite happy to go to extremes in my nice warm study with a pot of tea at hand via my keyboard.
Exactly.
That's the only way.
At the moment,
I'm in the middle of a bit where a character's about to have a gun battle with two armed psychopaths, and it's going to be great fun to write. It's not a situation I have any desire to put myself into.
Exactly.
Yeah, And I get asked this a lot about whether I want to travel to the Antarctic or the Arctic, because I'm obsessed, obviously.
Yeah.
And firstly, as you've heard, I'm incredibly seasick and I don't like the cold. I also have chronic seasonal affective disorder, so like a British winter, that's too much for me. But also, I do believe that we've got quite a lot of responsibility to those parts of our planet, and I'm not certain where I land on whether tourism is sustainable in terms of the local environment, or maybe the benefits to the local economy weigh it out. I don't know, I haven't looked into it, but it's certainly something that I would think extremely carefully about.
I agree.
Particularly in Antarctica, which is, as we've said many times, a place where no one is from.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Okay, so here's a question. Are you going to continue to write extreme cold weather narratives, or are you thinking of some other extreme places?
I do enjoy writing an extreme narrative. I enjoy writing historical horror, and I enjoy banging on about things I don't really like, which are colonialism and the patriarchy, obviously.
So there's so much. I mean,
there's such a rich vein. There's a lot that can be done with it. I think that for now I might be leaving cold places behind, but there's still stories I'd want to tell there. But I think, you know, you've got the jungle, you've got the desert, you've got deep sea, you've got space, you know, there are all sorts of opportunities. I think the sort of story that I enjoy telling has all sorts of different settings, not necessarily cold. And it would just be nice to be able to buy books that have spines that aren't white or blue for a change. Let's be honest, my home decor needs it.
Well, talking of books that that don't quite have the same kind of look as the first two novels, I wanted to talk quickly about at least about your novella Jamie Hallow and the End of the World, which is under the byline of Ally Wilkes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and I don't know if you see it. I mean, do you see a great distinction between Ally Wilkes and Ally Wilkes as writers? But I mean, I devoured it over a couple of days and enjoyed it greatly. And for my first question, I suppose, would be: is there going to be any more?
I would deeply like to do some more. That all depends on sales, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote it to be a standalone novella that could bear being expanded into a trilogy, because there's a lot of stuff about the world. There's a lot of world building in there, which I'd really like to unpack a little bit more. So I've left myself, as it were, avenues that I can explore. But on the other hand, if it doesn't happen, it is a standalone book, and I'm just delighted that I got the chance to do something so fun, because that was what the book was to me. It was I think I was out on submission at the time. I was feeling, I know it was winter, I was feeling pretty glum, and I just thought, what would be fun? A neo-Lovecraftian post-apocalyptic novella about queer teens in a bunker. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so I outlined it in maybe a day. I wrote it in a week, and then went, do you know what? That is fun, actually.
Fun is underrated.
Absolutely.
I think fun is deeply underrated, and that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the indie and self-pubbed horror press, is because that is often where either fun lives or really batshit crazy stuff lives. And that's in itself, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Where you get people sort of who are at the front lines of it all. That's where you get people who are really stretching the boundaries of what's possible. And so I was just pleased to be able to do like this little thing, which probably wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds in the consideration of one of the big 5 publishers, but it's out there, it's in the world, it's got a sick cover. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot to be said for writing the stuff that you want to read. But
Yeah.
there's also a lot to be said for just assuming that there's at least one other person out there that's going to want to read the type of stuff you write.
A lot of the time, people. I think a lot. It's what I think. Sometimes it's a little bit. You know, if you build it, they will come, kind of thing, as the inventor of the first vibrator thought. You know, yes, I went there. I'm sorry. Sorry, we should have warned you. The tone of the conversation tends to drag down to basement level when I'm around.
Scrimshaw.
Gemma's a big help in that department as well.
True.
But there is that thing of, you know, if you write about stuff that you care about and are passionate about, that's often infectious. People don't necessarily pick it up thinking, oh well, I'm going to read this because it's set in the North Pole, or it's set in an airship, or it's set in an oil tanker, or whatever. But if you excite yourself, as it were, writing something, if you creep yourself out, then hopefully the reader will be creeped out. If you're thrilled, the reader will hopefully be thrilled. If you laugh, hopefully the reader will laugh. It's not 100%, not always 100% effective, and it's kind of, they do say if enough people, if you're only getting really good reviews of people who completely get your book, then you're not enough people are reading it. Certainly, I've been fascinated reading some of the reviews because I have a sort of alter ego, Daniel Church, who wrote The Hollows, and which I'm sort of. He's kind of managed to be a far more successful novelist with that one book than I have managed to be throughout my entire career so far. It's had more sales, more reviews, and it's really interesting reading all the different takes. I've seen it's been condemned as Christian propaganda, it's been condemned as atheist propaganda, it's been condemned as woke bullshit from one guy who was really upset that all the main characters were women. And as all I can say is wait till the poor little chap reads the next Daniel Church book. He's going to need a paramedic. But also condemned as sort of rape-obsessed white supremacy. So, you know, it's kind of fascinating seeing how the very, very different things that readers bring to a book and the very, very different interpretations they get. But overall, even so, a great many of them do end up managing to enjoy themselves. And I think the loveliest review I've seen of it, or one of my favourite recently, was like, I didn't think I was really into this book, but I found myself thinking about it an awful lot, and I gave it 4 stars. So I kind of think, you know, I'll settle for that. You know?
Yes.
It will happen. We got inside your head.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very disciplined with myself in that I don't look at reviews or Amazon ratings or Goodreads. Like Goodreads, I treat like I'm walking away from an explosion. I set up my author profile and just thanks. Yes. I just don't think it would be good for me. And if people, you know, I'm not an angel. If someone says, this is a 5-star review of your book and sends it to me, of course I'm going to read it. But I don't go out searching for anything, because I think for a lot of us writers, there's always going to be that little kernel of imposter syndrome in there. And you don't want to go full on William Day with it. So
no.
You definitely don't want that.
There are days, again, it can often depend as well. I mean, I suspect most of us writers are probably would probably rate us somewhat neurodivergent in one respect or another. I would certainly, most of us have had some dealings with the black dog, or the goblin chicken, as I refer to anxiety. So, you know, there are always going to be those days where reading one bad review is going to be enough to have you like basically crawling under the bedclothes for.
Yeah, I am terrible. I've always been terrible.
Yeah, I just don't need that. Thanks. Oh. Like I just couldn't.
I mean, one of my favourite ones is I think Alan Moore. He was writing about when he was working on V for Vendetta, and he said on the good days, you know, I write 6 pages of script, get it all right first time, everything's fine. On the bad days, I write 6 pages of script, realise it's terrible, crumple it up, throw it away and start again, and this repeats itself until I'm reduced to a gibbering wreck who slumps in a chair whimpering about how it has no talent and will never write again. And the next day I get it all right first time and walk around the house reading all my favourite bits to my wife, my children, the cat, the postman and passing strangers. And
the snake god in the basement.
And that's Alan fucking Moore, who's
Yeah.
an authentic bonkers genius.
Pretty much.
And that's what he goes through. So the rest of us,
Exactly.
can take some comfort from that. I think it is one of those things where it's like the best lack all conviction and the worst all over sodding social media, spamming you with their shitty self-published collections. Oh my God! Not that self-published collections can't be great, obviously.
Yes.
But,
We know it.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, I also tell whenever I'm asked for tips for young writers, don't look at your reviews, don't look at Goodreads. They're always top of my list. And I'd say that goes double for queer writers.
Yeah.
And I'd say it probably goes triple for writers of colour or from Indigenous communities. The sheer amount of stuff I have heard going on Goodreads leads me to believe it's not somewhere I ever want to hang out.
No.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No, I think it's best to do the better William Day thing and learn to accept who you are and live in it. Just inhabit it.
And then go and feed it worms in the basement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if you're happy with that result, then if you're happy with what you do, that's kind of the baseline, because that's the only thing you can control.
Yeah,
You can't
absolutely.
control whether anyone will want to publish it, whether if it is published people will like it, and you certainly can't publish what all the assembled munchkins of the internet will have to say about it. If you're lucky, a lot that some of them will like it. But you're always going to get some real idiots.
Bangers.
And yeah, like you say, I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that I am a white cisgendered male and to all intents and purposes presenting as straight. So I get some crap online, obviously, but nowhere near as much as I would if I was, visibly queer or a woman or not white or trans or or God help me, any combination of the above.
Yeah.
And it's just like no one needs to be. We're all just trying to, in this kind of an equal struggle between ourselves and the blank page or screen, and that's enough bloody work for anyone.
Yeah,
Never
exactly.
mind having to deal with a bunch of swivel-eyed morons who think the only thing that's standing between them and a $1 million book deal or people is wokeness and people getting. We'd have to have a whole conversation about what we mean by wokeness. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'd like to talk
Not
about.
today. Not today, Sid.
Tofu eating wokerati.
Yes.
Senwa.
Yeah, I mean, as far as people like Suella Braverman's concerned, yes, woke and proud of it, and eat my dust, you Nazi.
Yeah.
It's
It's one of the things that I continue to find humorous to this day, that when All the White Spaces came out in paperback in the UK, my cover quote was Paul Tremblay, and I was very excited because I love Paul. He's a great writer. He's a great quote. And then it went into second printing, and my cover quote is now from the Daily Mail, who inexplicably loved it.
Interesting.
What's factory as well?
To which you do sort of want to grab them and go, did you read it?
Yeah.
Did you understand it? But it's a great cover quote. I'm just perplexed.
Yes.
And one of the things I think with the Daily Mail, some of the people who actually do what passes for whatever remains of actual journalism in its pages are often people who are actually professionals and who are very good at what they do, as opposed to the people who write the editorial and the op-ed and the opinion columns, who are raving psychopaths who should be basically chained up in a basement somewhere and injected with diazepam every hour. Even or Melanie Phillips, who was so insane even the Daily Mail got rid of her. You have to stop and think about that. But I always remember reading the Wasp Factory by Ian Banks, and of course it was you open that and it's full of excerpts from reviews, including the ones that said this every copy of this book, and quite possibly the author as well, should be doused in gasoline and set on fire, kind of thing. But one of the reviews that actually said this is an original, brilliant piece, and a mighty imagination has arrived on the scene, was the actual quote they used, was from the Mail.
Oh.
So
well,
it's
company then. Wasp Factory is excellent.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, the first novel I ever had published, which was a work for hire zombie novel, actually got a 4-star review in, of all things, the Daily Telegraph, which was the kind of the definition of mixed feelings. I mean, I had to go down to the local newsagent, buy a copy of the Telegraph, and hide it inside a copy of Kinky Latex Donkey Fucking magazine, because it was much shameful.
You don't want people to know you're reading the Telegraph.
Oh.
But the ironic thing is, because my dad is unfortunately a Tory, we've tried to find treatment for it, but when I told him about it, he went out to get a copy and somehow managed to get his wires crossed and buy a copy of The Guardian, which I'm not sure if he broke out in hives after handling it, but that was it's possible pretty much the only time in his life I'm sure he's bought a copy of The Guardian.
Wow. This has been wonderful. I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm hoping you did too.
Yes, thank you very much for chatting to me. It's been great.
No problem.
And thank you for all the lovely things you've said about my book. It makes me incredibly grateful. You're both incredibly talented writers. Simon, you know that your Black Mountain is my oh my god, found footage weirdo novel about whales. Get in.
I know.
More people should get into that one. More people should get in and drive with
that one. It's great. And Gemma, I've just been reading, I think, is it Blood from the Air? Yes. I've just read, oh my God, the story about Little Ease. It is horrible. It is truly, truly disturbing and fucked up. It's brilliant. You just can't stop thinking about that mental image. It's perfect. So I'm
really glad.
Really delighted to be able to chat to such incredibly talented authors.
Oh, thank you.
More than mutual. Before you go, there was a couple of last things I wanted to very quickly ask you. One is, what are you working on next? Or what are you working on now? And the other was, if you could put, I love to ask people this, if you could put one thing you've done, be it a short story, a novella, or a novel, into like a time capsule to guarantee that at least one thing you've done would be around to be read by like whoever may still exist in 500 years' time, what piece of your work would you put in there?
Difficult. So what I'm working on now, I'm working on a third novel. It is historical, supernatural horror with an expedition element. It's nowhere cold this time, you guys. And my slightly sneaky and definitely oblique elevator pitch for it is Rebecca Meets the Ruins.
Yes.
I am all about the modern Gothic and the Bluebeard's Castle narrative right now. So having a lot of fun with that one. That's what I'm working on at the moment. And if I could time capsule a piece of my work, I think it would have to be All the White Spaces, because that's my firstborn. I love him. You always remember, I think, the first book you put out, the first really, and in my case, it's such a chunky boy. Yeah. So I'm just so proud of it still. And I think it might have, oh God, this is going to sound so wanky. It might have an interesting cultural relevance in several years' time against the background of the UK's increasingly frothing at the mouth transphobia to have a horror novel with a trans protagonist. Yeah. So
I agree.
I don't know if we'll get better or we'll get worse, but one thing I've learned from researching trans history to write that novel is that progress isn't linear, so it's anyone's guess.
It goes up and down. Yeah. I mean,
like so many things.
As far as the new work in progress goes, all I can say is if this was a Facebook conversation, I would be posting that GIF of Fry from Futurama going, "Shut up and take my money." As it's not, it's like I have to say I really I can't wait to read it. I hope it's, if it's not already got a home, I hope it gets one, and I hope
so too.
You get scads of copies so that people come and offer you more offer you contracts for more, and it gets adapted for a Netflix special, and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
You're on my list. You're on my list of people whose stuff I will always buy and I will always read.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. And thank you for liking my literally bugfuck story.
It is actually bugfuck insane, right?
Yeah.
Too much. It's too much. You always come up with these really demented ideas, and I love it.
Good. This is my brand.
It's always something, it's always something truly wrong. Brilliant.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I don't know, but I have to keep going. And I think that's for all of us. For all three.
I think so too. Some of my very first English composition essays would come back marked as bloodthirsty as ever by the teacher, and I've kind of gone on in that direction ever since. Which is why you should have encouraged me. But
well, I have hanging above my desk here the cover for the very first book I ever wrote when I was 8. It is called The Thing That Came Out of the Night. And it has a little tombstone with a little werewolf claw hanging onto the tombstone, and a big moon and some scary eyes. And I'm like, 8-year-old Ally knew what was up.
Yep.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
She knew what she knew what she wanted, and she did it.
Yeah. Since then my covers have got better, but that's no thanks to me.
Yeah, there's only one. I think certainly. I mean, Gemma's a very talented artist. About my efforts, the less said, the better. I've done a few funny cartoons about a lamprey, and that's about it. Mainly to.
But how many can make that claim? Not many.
Okay. Is there anything you wish we'd asked you?
Yes.
Oh man, I hate it when people do this because it makes it feel like it's in a job interview.
No, it's
no. I don't wish you'd asked me anything more. It was lovely.
I'm glad.
Okay. Well,
I'm really glad, and it was lovely.
Yes. Okay. So, huge thanks to Ally Wilkes for joining us on the podcast. As we said at the beginning, Ally's new novel, Where the Dead Wait, is coming out this month, December 2023, from in the United States from
Atria,
and from Titan Books in the UK in January 2024. And trust me, you are really, really, really gonna want to read it.
Oh yeah, devour it. In fact,
yes, much like you will possibly experience the urge to devour human flesh.
Yes.
So we will be back to lower the tone again in the near future. But until then, I have been Simon Bestwick.
I remain Gemma Files, and this, of course, is always no darkness, but ours. Ooh, ah.
I just hope everyone's audio was recorded because I don't think anyone needs another hour's video of me going insane in my living room.
I agree with that.
Yeah. If you do have to overdub me with funny sound effects, just make them very funny, all right?
All right. Okay.
Absolutely. We'll I don't know what kind of noises do penguins make anyway.
I don't know.